Welcome to another episode of the Filipino Genealogy channel. Today, we will explore the family tree of Rajah Humabon of Cebu and his enemy and Philippine hero Datu Lapu-Lapu. For this video, we will make use of the pre-Hispanic royal families of the Visayas chart, which you can order online through my website. Or, should you wish to have your very own family tree drawn in this manner, feel free to shoot us an email and we will be very happy to help you out. In making this family tree, we used many historical and oral traditions and used various sources to come up with a unified chart. To illustrate the differences, the names here are color-coded. The ones in red, like Lapu-Lapu and Humabon, are names taken from archival documents and other first-hand accounts, while those in brown, like Lapu-Lapu's wife and children, are those taken solely from oral history and other writings that have no solid historical provenance. Let us begin with the earliest ancestor of the Visayas royal families, Bataugong and Balintawak. Now, it is believed that Sri Bataugong and his family were part of the third migration of Malays to the Philippines. And it is also further believed that they brought with them their own beliefs and practices which they shared and spread all throughout Cebu, including the skill of hand-to-hand combat called the Kali system, which would also later be known as Eskrima. Bataugong and Balintawak had at least 6 sons. These were Rajah Humabon, Sri Midal, Sri Tawakal, Sri Barat, Anduki, and Sri Pamampawahi. We do not know much about these sons except that they were supposedly rulers in different parts of Cebu. The choicest portion of the kingdom later passed on to Rajah Humabon, who became the king of Sugbo, or which is now part of Cebu City and its environs. Rajah Humabon married Mandawili, and they had at least 2 sons by the name of Sri Bantug and Sri Ukub. Now, Sri Bantug, the eldest son, succeeded his father, Rajah Humabon, in ruling Sugbo, while his younger brother Sri Ukub started his own dynasty in Limasawa. Sri Bantug had at least 3 verifiable children: Humabon, Paranga Bendara, and Kadayo. Oral history suggests further that they had 2 other brothers. These were Sri Agu and Sri Lamarao Dula. Now, Humabon, the eldest son, later became king after the death of his father Sri Bantug, and he took the name of Hari Humabon, using the Cebuano term for king. His younger brother, Sri Paranga Bendara, is also known as Bendahara, and he was his prime minister. The next brother, Sri Agu, is said to be the ancestor of the rulers of Butuan, while the 4th brother, Sri Lamarao Dula, is included here in the family tree only because he is said to be the great-grandfather of Tamblot of Bohol. Now, if we are to review Philippine history, Tamblot was a babaylan who led the now known Tamblot uprising from 1621 to 1622. As a babaylan or a local priest, Tamblot refused to accept the conversion of his people to the Christian faith and insisted on practicing the old religion. Now, Tamblot is known as one of the first to fight against the Spaniards. The last brother is Cadayo, who is mentioned in the chronicles of Antonio Pigafetta. Now, Hari Humabon was the king of Sugbu who greeted Ferdinand Magellan when Magellan and his expedition arrived in the islands of Cebu. Hari Humabon accepted the friendship of Magellan and in fact entered into a blood compact with him. And to seal this friendship, Hari Humabon allowed himself, his family, and his entire people to be baptized into the Christian faith. And after his baptism, Humabon became King Carlos, while his wife, Hara Amihan, was called Queen Juana. Now, Humabon actually had an older wife called the principal wife. And this is the first wife because she was part of the Mactan royal family and was in fact the sister of Humabon's enemy, Sri Lapu-Lapu. Now, after the death of his wife, he remarried to a younger woman by the name of Amihan. And this was the Queen Juana that we now know, who was also baptized by Magellan and his team. Humabon and his first wife had 4 daughters, according to historical accounts. Although, based on oral tradition, he had 3 more children. And one of them was Birong Bangkigisan. Now, this is only included in the family tree because one of the descendants of this particular son of Humabon is Juan Matang Diong. According to history, Juan Matang Diong was one of the leaders of the 1815 revolt in Cebu. He is painted by various authors as one who resisted the efforts of Spanish friars to acquire landed estates in Cebu's hinterland, while other authors also believe that he was one who led rebellious activities that precipitated Cebu's anti-Spanish revolt in April 1898. He is also believed to have been a skillful escrimador who led his townsmen against the Moros. It is interesting to point out here that eskrima was supposed to be one of his skills because eskrima has always been associated with the family of Humabon and Lapu-Lapu, it being believed to have been brought by Bataugong and his people to the island of Cebu. Historically, we know that Humamay, the eldest daughter of Humabon, who was baptized Catherine, married her cousin Tupas Kamparang, who was baptized Ferdinand. Now, Tupas Kamparang was actually the grandson of Bendahara. Because Humabon did not have sons, in order to maintain power within the family, Humamay was arranged to marry her cousin Tupas, and thus becoming Hara Humamay or Queen Humamay and Hari Tupas or King Tupas. A sister of Hari Tupas was Kinis Sumakyo, who was baptized Isabel. It is interesting to note that Isabel is the first native Filipino to marry a foreigner who was part of Magellan's crew. Andres de Calafate. Now, Humamay and Tupas had at least 6 children. These were Birong Tumandog, who was later baptized Carlos Tupas, another son who is unnamed, 3 unnamed daughters, and 1 youngest daughter by the name of Catalina. Tracing back to the principal wife of Humabon was, as already mentioned, a sister of Sri Lapu-Lapu. Now, it is interesting to note that, according to history, one of the reasons for the quarrel between Lapu-Lapu and Humabon was actually the remarriage of Humabon to another woman, even after being married to a sister of another powerful family in the island of Visayas. Now, Sri Lapu-Lapu was said to have been the son of Dato Mangal and Matang Mantaunas, while Dato Mangal is believed to have been the son of Sri Muhammad. Again, from the name itself, we can tell that there is an Islamic influence as to the origins of Lapu-Lapu's grandfather, considering that oral history suggests that his father, Dato Mangal, came also from the island of Malaysia. Now, Lapu-Lapu married Bulakna, who was a princess and the daughter of Dato Berhulo. Bulakna was said to have been the most beautiful princess at that time, and Lapu-Lapu had to prove his strength and his abilities in order to win her hands. They had at least 2 sons, Dagami and Awili. Now, one oral history passed on from generation to generation in the island of Mactan said that when Lapu-Lapu and Bulakna were too old to rule their kingdom, they decided to leave Mactan forever and entered a cave, a magical cave, where they disappeared forever and left their son Awili and the sons Awili and Dagami to rule Mactan after them. The other members of the family are the descendants of Sri Ukub. Now, it was actually his son, Rajah Humabon, who also made a blood compact with Magellan. And once baptized, Rajah Humabon became King Juan, while his wife became Queen Isabel. A great-grandson of Rajah Humabon was Dato Bangkao of Limasawa. Now, interestingly, Bangkao also led a religious revolt against the Spaniards. And it is interesting further to note that Bangkao led his own revolt at the same time that his cousin, Tamblot of Bohol, also led an uprising in his own place. Now, Dato Bangkao was actually a ruler of Limasawa. And although he was baptized a Christian, after many years, he decided to return to the old faith of his people and rallied everyone to do the same. Of course, this rebellion was quelled by the Spaniards, and Dato Bangkao was put to death together with a lot of his family and followers. Please take note that the primary sources for this discussion are the following: Ferdinand Magellan, the Armada de Maluco, and the European discovery of the Philippines, a study based on primary sources written by Danilo Gerona. Now, we also made use of the genealogy of Hari Tupas, an ethno-history of chiefly power, and the hierarchy in Sugbu as a prostate by Astrid Sala Boza. And for the oral histories, majority of the information was taken from Aginid, Bayok sa Atong Tawarik by Jovito S. Abellana, and Lapu-Lapu, The Conqueror of Magellan by Vicente Gullias, with Resil B. Mojares as its editor. So those are the different members of the pre-Hispanic royal families of the Visayas. Of course, not everything here is, as I said earlier, documented through archival documents, but we made sure that everything that we presented here were based on the scholarly works of many people who documented these characters of our history. We hope you enjoyed this another episode of the Filipino Genealogy channel. We hope to see you again in our next video, and thank you for watching. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.